When a tag team splits up, cruel wrestling fans dub the more successful one as Shawn Michaels and the less successful one as Marty Jannetty. This, my friends, is uncalled for. While the Heartbreak Kid did go on to be one of the best wrestlers ever, to ignore Jannetty's in-ring ability and talent is ridiculous. If he hadn't had as many personal issues as he did, it could have been a different story. On top of that, to act like it's this way with all tag teams is stupid. It's not like you send them on their own way and they become an instant hit. In fact, oftentimes fans are left shouting, "Why did you split them up to begin with?" Sometimes there is no need. But I'm Simon from What Culture. Please do hit that subscribe button. And this is the 10 wrestling tag teams that got the worst gimmicks after splitting. Number 10, the Smoking Guns. For as long as I can remember, wrestling has been obsessed with cowboys. Doesn't exist that much anymore, but back in the day, every promotion had to have one. Even Vince McMahon wanted to bring in Bret Hart during the 80s as Cowboy Bret Hart. He was even gonna ride in on a horse. Thankfully that didn't happen for the Hitman, but surely it was why Bart and Billy Gunn were thrown together and kinda made to look like Wild West porn stars. Those moustaches. They were a decent team though, so why WWE split them up with clearly no idea what to do is a mystery. Billy went on to be managed by the Honky Tonk Man and changed his name to Rockabilly, whereas Bart was stripped of any defining character traits and thrown into the Brawl for All, where he was just an extra body. And sure, he won the thing, but I tell you this, that was not the plan, and boy howdy, people were mad. This could have been the end for both if it wasn't for Billy finding the Road Dogg and becoming part of one of the most popular tag teams of the Attitude Era. As for Bart though, well, it was the end. He got sparked out by Butterbean at WrestleMania 15 and was released soon after. What a mess. Number 9, the Dudley Boys. The only reason Bubba and Devon were split up in 2002 is so WWE could show that anything could happen now that Raw and SmackDown were becoming their own entities. It's so dumb because you're working backwards. Figure out what you want to do with them as single stars, then plant the seeds. Don't just do it because it's something to do. Even these two thought this was a bad move and they were right. Bubba basically carried on the act, but now he didn't have a friend, and Devon became a reverend who I think was trying to steal money from the audience. Not sure if that was ever explained, or why Batista was paired with him. It was just weird and it didn't work. It's why only 8 months later WWE decided to put them back together again like Humpty Dumpty. It was the right move and everyone loved the reunion, but given that Bubba had a great run later on as Bully Ray in TNA that was well thought out, well, it goes to show what could have been. Number 8, the New Foundation. Never put new in front of old successful tag teams and try and pretend that the new individuals stepping into these shoes are as good. It never works. It's happened so many times over the years, and again here with the Hart Foundation or New Foundation. Sounds like some kind of beauty product. This one was a little different as Jim the Anvil Neidhart was still involved, and instead of Brett, we had Brother Owen. It squeezed a bit more juice out the idea, but man did it not end up well. Neidhart was struggling with personal issues, so was fired before returning as some masked idiot called Who, and Owen was forced to revert back to the Blue Blazer gimmick, which was always mediocre at best. This didn't help either guy, and it was the same for Owen when he teamed with Coco Beware in High Energy. At least he always had those high energy pants though. Number 7, Marcus Alexander Bagwell and Too Cold Scorpio. Do you remember this team? Probably not, and that's on WCW, of course. Thrown together randomly, the two actually had something and began to get decent reactions from the audiences. As such, World Championship Wrestling broke them up as quick as they could, because why not? It saw Scorpio leave the company entirely, which wasn't ideal, and Bagwell was then forced into other teams that simply weren't as good. Firstly, he joined the Patriot as Stars and Stripes, and then he formed the American Males with Scotty Riggs. During their entrance, they would act like strippers. So this didn't help him at all, and while there was some degree of separation, Scorpio getting cast as Flash Funk in WWF was no better. I mean, come on man, that is stereotyping at its worst. Number 6, the Dream Team. Consisting of Brutus Beefcake and Greg Valentine, this pairing had that WWF 80 sheen and they did alright. They were popular enough and made their way up the card, which was enough for the powers that be to split them up. Brutus would go on to be the barber, which was decent I suppose, and Valentine was a no-nonsense heel that wasn't upsetting anyone. But then things got awful. Like, what the hell happened? Beefcake went on to try and break the record for the amount of gimmicks one person could play, including the Zodiac, the Man with No Name, the Butcher, the Booty Man, and the Disciple. I don't think fans cared about the first attempt, but after 57,678 changes, they were totally checked out. And then Greg, what on earth? He became an Elvis impersonator and teamed with the Honky Tonk Man, who was already an Elvis impersonator. They were called Rhythm and Blues, and you have never seen anyone this uncomfortable in your life. It was like your dad at a Jay-Z concert. How any of this happened, I do not know. Number 5, Demolition. Right, okay, who wrote this? Breaking the fourth wall for a moment, we here at What Culture often tag team these lists, with one person authoring them and the other turning them into glorious YouTube content. So imagine my surprise when Demolition cropped up and shots were fired at Repo Man. I mean, my word. A quick catch up in case you need it. I think Repo Man is the greatest gimmick ever, and that is no word of a lie. It just sums up how creative and open-ended wrestling can be. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. This guy was just trying to do his job, and fans booed the hell out of him. Anyway, focusing on the second version of the group after Bill Axe Edie left the company in 1990, it meant original member Smash was teamed with Bryan Adams' Crush. That didn't work because you can't mess with a classic, and soon they were off on their own. We've already discussed what happened with Barry Darsow, but Crush didn't fare well at all. He would become Kona Crush, some happy Caribbean guy or something, but that was a failure, and he was then transformed into a band guy and teamed with the Nation of Domination. I think he was meant to be a jailbird or something. I have no idea, but I do know it was bad. Number 4, the Dancing Fools and Boogie Nights. Disco Inferno and Alex Wright had so much success as a tag team that WCW put them together twice. And that is a joke in case you missed it. But as well as becoming the Dancing Fools, the stupidest name of all time, they reformed eventually as Boogie Nights, and both were mid-card fodder at best. In hindsight, they should have kept them joined. In the late 90s, Disco was transformed into an R&B dude called Disco with a Q, obviously to try and rip off Sisqo, who was massive at the time with his thong song. This version sucked. As for Wright, well, he stopped jiggling his hips to become some industrial dark character called Berlin, again spelt wrong with a Y, because wrestling is weird. He was even given a bodyguard called The Wall, and if you can't figure that out, don't worry about it. Just know it's so stupid and so bad, and none of this did anything. Number 3, the Primetime Players. I still don't get why WWE did this. Titus O'Neil and Darren Young were great together and could have been around for ages. Plus the crowd was into them, there was more here than management ever allowed. It is ludicrous. Twice though, they were forced to split. This happened initially in 2014 before they found their way back to each other, but then in 2016, it was all over again. This time, it was bad. Young was paired with Bob Backlund of all people as they tried to make Darren great again, and while this could have worked, it only lasted a few weeks before losing all momentum as WWE didn't get behind it in any sense. It was like Mojo Rawley in 2020. Sometimes it's there, and sometimes it's just not. O'Neil, on the other hand, would go on to start Titus Worldwide, and once more backstage officials seemed to forget the point of new stables. Joined by Apollo Crews and Dana Brooke, had the three started winning matches with the help of the others, this would have been great, but that didn't go down. Instead, they lost all the time, and then they were broken up. So what was the point in that? They literally wasted your life. Number 2, Harlem Heat. Harlem Heat are one of the best teams ever. Booker T and Stevie Ray looked cool and wrestled the same way, and they were way ahead of their times in many ways. They held the WCW tag titles a record number of times, and it wasn't even that surprising when the company split them up in 1997. It did feel like they could succeed on their own. This would have been true if WCW hadn't have hired Vince Russo years later, who only had one idea for Booker T: turn him into G.I. Bro. Yep. I don't need to go further with that because it's an entire gimmick based off a pun, but it's not like Stevie was having a great time either. He was put into the NWO, but officials made it very clear he was part of the B Squad, and then in 2000, Harlem Heat were back, but this time Ray was teaming with Big T, also known as Ahmed Johnson. That was not good, and if you want to know why, just Google wrestlers' thoughts on Mr. Johnson. He was not well received. Number 1, the natural disasters. Earthquake and Typhoon were awesome. The perfect 80s tag team, WWF putting two massive dudes together and calling them after cataclysmic events was so damn cool, especially when you were a kid. They looked like they could kill you and they were terrifying. Unfortunately, after this, well, my word. After both had left the promotion, John Earthquake Tenter became Shark, and yes, you heard that right. He thought he was the animal that lived in the sea, and much like a lot of this list, I don't know why people aren't sharks. As for Fred Typhoon Ottman, well, you already know. Everyone is aware, and that's the problem. Repackaged as the Shockmaster, which would have been awful anyways as he was forced to wear a sparkly stormtrooper helmet, the whole thing was dead in the water when during his debut he smashed through a wall and tripped over some of the debris. His helmet came off his head, the British Bulldog was in tears watching this, and within seconds, we had a joke and an internet meme. What makes no sense is that both guys went to WCW to do this, so why didn't they do what they always did do and put them back together again? You could have called them Whirlwind and Giant Flood for I would have cared, but whatever, anything would have been better than Shark and the Shockmaster, which depressingly also could have been a WCW tag team. Know of any other tag teams that got worse gimmicks after splitting? Make sure you let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then head over to whatculture.com and read yourself some articles. Follow What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE, and watch more videos here on What Culture Wrestling. My name is Simon from What Culture, and I will talk to you again soon.